Macbeth. My guess is that Shakespeare's made him the most famous King of Scots. But what did this usurper's coronation look like? If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. If you believe an English playwright who may never have set foot in Scotland, writing for a King of England who'd only once returned, you may have the wrong impression. But if you'd been here at Scone in 1040, what would the coronation of Macbeth have looked like? In fact, what would the coronation of any ancient Scottish king look like? Of course, coronations would have been followed by a big slap-up meal. So when we've finished the inauguration, I'm going into the kitchens of Scone Palace to join Max Miller of Tasting History with Max Miller to see what Macbeth and his contemporaries might have eaten. You better stick around for that. Over here is Moot Hill, the Hill of Parliament, the Hill of Belief. It's got lots of different names. Let me know in the comment section if you've ever been here. But it's where Scottish kings were inaugurated. And there's the first thing to point out. When I said coronation, I was just reeling you in, because Scottish kings weren't crowned. How did they become king? On a second, on Moot Hill there, I'm going to tell you. But first, let's quickly cover why they became king. If you've been watching my videos, then you'll know that there was no automatic enthronement as somebody who was entitled by birth to be King of Scots. No inevitable birthright of the eldest son. That's why when Shakespeare talks about Macbeth usurping the rightful place of kings, he was talking bollocks. Macbeth became king under the Celtic rules of tanistry. The senior men and priests of the nation chose the next king in advance. He was the tanist. Given the recent sad news, I've edited out the irreverent joke that I made during filming. But the Queen's passing does illustrate how different things now are. Tanistry was like if the current British House of Lords chose who would succeed the Queen some time ago. It could be Charles, but they could equally choose his son, Prince William, or even his brother, Andrew, Edward, or wider family. Now that Her Majesty has actually passed, the Lords would be able to review their decision and choose a different tanist if they wished. But in those days, it meant you had continuity with a respected adult male. I think these days they call it succession planning. Of course, by the time we get to James VI and Shakespeare, the whole divine right of kings and eldest sons was a big feature. Primogeniture, they call it. James's right to rule was kind of why the whole play was written. That change from tanistry to primogeniture had happened after the inauguration of Macbeth, arguably the last truly Celtic king, and before Robert the Bruce, arguably the first fully Norman king. Now, I know I can hear the aficionados saying, hold on, surely the Celtic-Norman divide wasn't as clean cut as that. And what about Lulach? And what about Duncan II and Donald III? And surely in the time of Malcolm Canmore, his court might have been Saxonised, but he was still Celtic. And surely Robert the Bruce's mum was Celtic, and John Balliol. And I know it was a messy period of transition. But let's keep it simple for the bairns. So between Macbeth and Robert the Bruce, things changed. During that Canmore dynasty, correctly called the House of Dunkeld, came Anglicisation and then Normanisation, gradually, with a couple of hiccups along the way, like the stooshy between Malcolm's sons and his brother. I'll talk about that in the video about the last Celtic King of Scotland. Oh, and Edward Longshanks stuck his neb in as well. By the time we get to Robert the Bruce, primogeniture had been established. In fact, Robert Bruce's son, David II, was a child king. 3 kings later, James I spent the first 18 years of his reign as a hostage in England from the time that he was captured by English pirates as a boy. That wouldn't have happened under tanistry. Somebody would have filled that void. So did the Canmore dynasty wipe out the traditional inauguration ceremony used for Macbeth? By the last of those Canmore kings, Alexander III, we know that the key elements of a royal inauguration were still happening here at Scone, because there are several records of Alexander III's coronation written down, and one etched into the seal of the abbey here at Scone. Let me decode it for you. First of all, Moot Hill here had been a place of significance for the Picts since before the political and cultural takeover by the Scots of Dalriada. This Pictish location and Scots ceremony signifies the two peoples coming together to form one kingdom, and at its centre was the Stone of Destiny. And honest, this is the real one. Now, I've talked about it in previous videos and I didn't need to go into the history of the day. All you need to know is that on the Scone Abbey seal, Alexander III is seated on this stone as Macbeth and all the other kings of Scots before him would have been. He's surrounded by the key characters of this ceremony: the Earls of Fife and Strathearn, the Bishops of St Andrews and Dunkeld, and the Abbot of Scone, and the King's Poet. I hope you can see that the Bishop of St Andrews and the Abbot of Scone have just cloaked and enthroned Alexander in this inauguration robe. Above them, on the right of Alexander, there's a third cleric, the Bishop of Dunkeld, and on the left is the King's Poet. You can see he's reading from a book or a scroll or something. Now, let me explain the significance of these characters. The Macduff Earl of Fife is the most prominent Mortimer, and from the sons of the royal line of Dhu, Macduff, Macdhu. He'd lead the king to be seated in the stone. The Earl of Strathearn was from the area that formed the heartland of Alapa, the new nation of Scotland. If you watch my video about the Scots who made the Scottish people, then you'll know that from the Celtic ceremonies of sitting on stones or placing footprints in stone that connected to the king and the land, in 574 AD, St Columba first added a religious aspect to connect kingship to God when he ordained Aidan Magabran at Iona. Now, many years later, when the Vikings came to Iona, Columba's relics were moved to the new religious centre of Dunkeld under the first King of Scots, Kenneth MacAlpin. Then, as the cult of St Andrew took over, the religious centre of the Scots moved to Kilryman, St Andrews. The first time that we know for sure that a ceremony of bonding between king, church and land happened here was in 909 with Kenneth MacAlpin's grandson, Constantine II. And it was Constantine who moved the religious centre from Dunkeld to what we call St Andrews. So you see why, even at the end of the Canmore dynasty that succeeded Macbeth, the ceremony includes the bishops of St Andrews and Dunkeld and the Abbot of Scone. But really, the key figures were the Earl of Fife and the Poet. When the Earl of Fife had led the king to the stone, the bishops would cloak him. That's where the Poet comes in. He would read the king's Gallic ancestral pedigree all the way back to the original ancestors, Gael Glass, son of Neolus, king of Athens, and of course his wife, Princess Scota, daughter of Pharaoh. This royal genealogy was the king's charter of right and proof of title, and the poet's role was critical. It was he who placed the sceptre in the king's left hand and proclaimed him king. And then, finally, the Earl of Fife presented the newly inaugurated king with the sword of state in his right hand as the concluding act of the inauguration. Cloaked in piety, connected to the land and ancestors, acclaimed by the most senior earls and churchmen, and wielding the sword that would protect his people, Macbeth would have gone forward to lead the nation in a 17-year period of relative peace and prosperity. But first, he would have been ready for his dinner. Now, we've been given access to Scone Palace kitchens, and I'm going to take you to meet Max Miller, who's a fantastic historical cooking channel, and he's going to make us some food that would have been eaten by Macbeth. Let's go inside. So Max, great to meet you. Now, we're in Scone Palace kitchens. Tell me this, what would people have eaten at a banquet after a coronation back in the 11th, 12th century?
So we don't know a lot about Scottish food at that time. They didn't write a lot down about their food, and the archaeology is spotty at best, but we do have some answers. Number one, beef. Cattle were the most important animal for food at the time, especially with the upper class, because they were also a form of currency. But at a banquet, you would also have a lot of game meat, like boar and pheasant, and they had something called buck's tail, which were the haunches of large male deer.
Yeah.
Now the food, while we often think of medieval food as being roasted on a big spit, probably would have all been boiled. They were very big into cauldrons at the time, especially in Scotland.
Hubble, bubble, toil and trouble.
Yes, yeah. Witches and kings alike. They would have boiled most of their food. And it would have been served with a lot of barley, a lot of oats. Those were the main staples. But since it is for a coronation, they can afford the best, and that would be wheat. They did grow some wheat, but they also imported a lot of wheat. What they probably didn't have a lot of for most meals were a lot of spices. But again, since it's a coronation, Macbeth or whoever it would have been importing different spices from Central Europe that had come over from the Orient. And so they would have a little bit more flavor to their dishes.
All right, so what are you going to make for us today?
So today I'm making something that would have been eaten at the time, but would also still be eaten today in some form or another. And that is arbroath smokies, which is a salted and dried fish.
Oh, I think we know what arbroath smokies are.
Then smoked, absolutely fantastic. And then I'm going to be making bannocks. And it's an older version of bannocks. Today they are often leavened, so they're more bread-like. But back in the day...
People at home probably call them oat cakes, don't they?
Oat cakes, yes.
But it's the same...
Same concept. A lot of the same ingredients, just no yeast until a little bit later when they started to introduce yeast. So they're flat, they're more like a pancake made with milk and butter and oats or barley. You can make them with barley as well.
Right. And Macbeth would have eaten these.
Everyone would have been eating these.
Yeah.
Now, would he have had them at his coronation? Maybe, maybe not. When he would have been definitely eating them is on the day-to-day and when he's going into battle, because they would take these bannocks or oat cakes and let them dry. They become kind of crispy, almost like modern hardtack, and so they could take them for weeks at a time and they wouldn't go bad.
So, bannocks to go into battle. Lead on, Macduff.
That's right.
So, Max, this looks delicious.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, to be honest, I don't eat fish.
Well, you're about to.
I'm going to do my patriotic duty.
That's right. Well, then please, do the honors. These are the arbroath smokies.
Right. That's actually all right.
Yeah.
It doesn't, do you know what I mean? It doesn't have that fishy...
Not at all.
I'm actually going to have another.
See? Just try new things. Yeah, no, you really get the smokiness.
Yeah, it's definitely...
Smokiness, and it's a firmer texture than most fish, but not chewy. Yeah.
It's nice. And the bannocks here are covered in...
Put a little heather honey from Scone Palace.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
Right, okay, lovely. Let me try a wee bit of that. I'll try. Oh, there you go.
Got to kind of cut into it.
Yeah. That's not easy. All right. Oh, no.
There you go.
Let me try. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Do you know what? I've now got a new thing to add to my list of possible things to eat.
All right.
So there you go. So Max has got a fantastic channel, Tasting History with Max Miller. So you need to go and watch it. He's got lots of videos about historical cooking. And there's one of his videos coming up on screen now. In the meantime, I'm in Dochas going to be Lama Live. Cheery and drastic.
Sweet. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's good.
It tasted much better than I expected it to.
Yeah. Yeah, no.